It's too much money here. I mean, nobody should be hitting lotto for 36 million and we got people starving in the streets. That is not idealistic. That's just real. That is just stupid.
You feel, however, that we're making progress in this country and worldwide?
No. I will never say that progress is being made. If you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, there's no progress. You pull it all the way out, that's not progress. The progress is healing the wound that the blow made. They won't even admit the knife is there.
Socialism is an integral part of building social justice on this planet.
We said that we'll work with anybody, form coalition with anybody that has revolution on their mind.
Because of the way this society is organized, because of the violence that exists on the surface everywhere, you have to expect that there are going to be such explosions. You have to expect things like that as reaction.
$36 million and we got people starving in the streets. That is just stupid.
Hello. Sorry for those technical issues at the beginning of the show. I hope it wasn't as rough on you as it was on me. Yes, oh my God, and the mic falling off. Jesus Christ, I swear to God, everything falling apart as we speak. But so much to get into on today's show. We have really, I apologize. Let me just quickly fix this, as I swear to God, I hate all technology and equipment turning into a Luddite as we speak. I could break and be like, I'll be right back, but no, we're not going to do that. This is live television. Fuck it, we're doing it live. That's the great Bill O'Reilly. God damn it, happened again. I'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. I deeply, deeply apologize. Okay, okay. I think we're back. Sorry for those technical issues. Hopefully the freaking mic stand doesn't fall apart again. Apologies. Apologies about the rough start to the show. Without further ado, let's get into it. I'm Matthew Hunter. You're listening to the show. Hit the like button, share the show, all that, stupid stuff. We have a lot to get into in terms of like a couple big stories that I want to dive into. One of them being very personal to me because I live in Los Angeles. Obviously, what's happening here in this city, in this county, has been very personal to me and my organizational experience and activism, so to speak. So definitely going to dive into my thoughts, my analysis on what we've seen on display here in reaction to sort of fascist terrorism hitting LA. I think it's becoming a blueprint for other areas to model, especially when we see these types of federal operations and domestic military occupations start picking up in other cities, whether it's being New York, Chicago, Portland. I mean, there's plenty of other cities where I think these types of fascistic tactics, ICE kidnappings are going to be replicated. And I think what we're seeing in response to that in LA is definitely going to be a blueprint, a model for the coming struggle. So going to dive into that one. And also give you guys sort of a preview of my article that I submitted to Peace, Land, and Bread magazine. Hopefully they publish it. I submitted yesterday, so hopefully they get back to me tomorrow. But you guys can sort of see a brief glimpse of that article before it gets published and edited and all that fun stuff. And obviously we also have the U.S., in a sense, going to war with Iran, and what that means, what's going to happen now. I was literally at the No War with Iran demonstration organized by Palestinian Youth Movement and like 30 other organizations here in LA as the news came out that we bombed Iran. That happened at the same time as that demonstration. So definitely going to dive into that as well. Like I said, without further ado, hit the like button, share the show, all that, usual stuff. If you haven't seen any of the videos that I put out from the LA protests over the last few weeks, just go check them out. Like the one in Paramount when the community spontaneously blocked ICE. That video is there. The No Kings rally. I mean, we're going to dive into all these different situations as well. The incident of ICE and federal authorities ramming a family in East LA in their car, kidnapping the father, tear gassing an infant and a child as well in that car. I have a video from the lawyer at the press conference, so check out those videos. I think they're worth watching. I was debating whether to show them on stream here, but they're there on the YouTube channel, so I recommend checking them out to sort of get a better on-the-ground perspective of what's happening and a look at it. Obviously, there's tons of videos on social media, so if you've been paying attention, I think you've seen what's been happening in LA. Now, I've written an article, and we're going to kind of go through it. I won't show it all. Apologies. You're going to have to wait till it gets published. But it's on this diversity of tactics that we've seen. That's sort of been a mantra that has been put out there by organizers and activists, that we need a diversity of tactics when it comes to ICE and Border Patrol kidnappings of our neighbors and our community members. When we talk about a response to the police brutality, a response to city collaboration and county collaboration with federal authorities. I mean, that's been sort of the call right now, is that there has needed to be a diversity of tactics and strategy. And I think what we have seen is implementation of that in LA. Now, before we jump into that, I do want to briefly mention that there is two particular things I wanted to highlight. One is a good comrade of mine, Comrade Alex over at Central CSO, dedicated comrade to the struggle for like a decade. His house was raided by the FBI. He's been charged with conspiracy. I believe it was conspiracy to cause a riot. Just bullshit charges that was also promulgated and pushed by local news, mainstream news as well. I believe it was ABC local news. It's horrific to say the least. And there's also another person that's been arrested, a media member, Anthony, what's his last name? Anthony Orendorf. Great comrade. Recommend checking out his video on Instagram. It's a beautiful video about LA during this time. But anyways, I just wanted to point out that we are seeing comrades, activists, media members now in prison or facing federal, criminal charges as a result of what's happening here. Fight Back News, go check out their article on Alejandro, on Comrade Alex. Oh shit, should not move the microphone before it breaks on me. But they have resources to go and help out as well. Now, let's get into these diversity of tactics, right? Now, there's been, I'm putting them all in a box, unfortunately, and I think it's important to point out that there are many organizations doing multiple tactics right now, right? Like we're going to talk about, peaceful protests, mobilizations. We're going to talk about mutual aid. We're going to talk about rapid response networks, and community defense, right? And are we in a period of armed struggle? That's kind of what we're going to talk about here. But there are multiple organizations, and we're going to get to a massive coalition that is pushing out multiple tactics in response to what's happening here. And it cannot be understated what is happening here in LA. That what we are seeing is fascist terrorism on our streets. We're seeing kidnappings of our community members and neighbors, family members, loved ones, friends. These aren't like criminals, as is pointed out, right? These aren't like gang members walking around. These are people that are at work. These are people that are literally been here for decades, that have family here, that have deep ties to these communities and neighborhoods. And the idea that they are a menace to our city and not ICE, not Border Patrol, is just utterly ridiculous. And if anyone out there is peddling that bullshit, they're not from this city. They're not from LA. If you're from LA, if you're in this area, you know that these people are no danger to us. The danger to us is ICE coming in and shooting up our neighborhood. The danger is LAPD and the Sheriff's Department collaborating with Border Patrol and the FBI to raid our homes, to raid our workplaces, and to kidnap people. Okay, these people that are being kidnapped, okay, we often have no contact with them. Their lawyers have no contact with them. Sometimes we don't even know where they are. Like, I want to point that out right now, right? We have masked Gestapo agents coming into our streets and disappearing our friends and family. That is the level of threat that's happening here. So it's not surprising that we're seeing such a angry response from these communities, from our communities, in response to this terrorism. I mean, that's blatantly what it is. And if you're an organizer, if you're a leftist out there on social media, make sure you're calling it what it is. Call these kidnappings. Like that's been a call from immigrants' rights orgs that we need to call these things what they are. That these are kidnappings, right? These people are not being arrested. There is no due process here. This goes against everything that is legal. But yeah, it's horrific what is happening in LA. I forget the exact numbers. I used to have it maybe like a week ago now, but it's been so much has happened, right? And so much is happening every day. There are ICE raids literally throughout the county every single day that we're seeing right now. for the past 3 weeks, if not really 100 and I think it's like 64 days, 65 days, something like that. It's been a reign of terror in our communities. And in response to that, what we've seen, like I said, we've seen the peaceful protests and mobilizations, mass mobilizations. We've seen mutual aid efforts. We've seen rapid response networks get developed, right? We've seen community defense, more than often spontaneous, develop. We've seen ICE raids get blocked in by the community. That is spontaneous community defense in action. And as I was saying, there's this thread point throughout all of them. It's not just that there's organizations doing multiple of them, but that every single one of these tactics has seen massive state repression. I think that needs to be stated, right? Every single one of these tactics, whether it's the peaceful protest that we are being called to do, and we do, we get shot at by the LAPD and the sheriffs. And then they end up shooting each other, right? Like, go check out the article by LA Public Press. I mean, we're in a state now where the police are so trigger happy that they're accidentally shooting each other at peaceful marches, at the No Kings rally, right? Like, I know as like communists, like we shit on like the No Kings, like 51 or whatever organization, which they rightfully deserve massive criticism. I think any organization that gets massive funding from like the Walton family should be a red flag for obvious reasons. But even that protest, right, which waved American flags, had a very liberal base come out to mobilize for it, a much older base, a much wider base, like clearly the Democratic base in the city, Democratic Party base, and they were shot at by the police, like relentlessly shot at by the police. I believe it was 4 hours almost exactly before curfew, right? So Mayor Karen Bass came out and put out curfew for, I think about, 6 days, from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. in a certain area in downtown LA. And that curfew was in effect on the day of the No Kings rally. And you have, again, the Democratic base, which is the base that would vote for Mayor Karen Bass again in an election. And she sends out her police force, the one that she has control over, the LAPD, and she sends them out there 4 hours before curfew to shoot at peaceful protesters. So we're seeing massive state repression even on that level, right? We're seeing labor leaders, right? And the labor mobilizations have, one, been a little bit underwhelming, if I'm going to be quite honest, in this city. I've expected more, especially from SEIU, as the California president of SEIU, David Huerta, is still technically facing charges, I want to say. I think he's still technically facing charges, even though he was released. There's been a lack of mobilization, but even their mobilizations was attacked by police. The labor mobilizations at the No Kings rally was attacked by police. So we're seeing that level of tactic with state repression. Mutual aid, obviously, the big claim is that Alejandro allegedly distributed items for a riot. In reality, he distributed PPE equipment, protective equipment, for peaceful protesters as the police were shooting at them. And we're talking about the violence on display. Where's the violence coming from? Where's the genesis and catalyst of the violence? It is coming from the fascist state. That is the utmost reality, right? There's no violent protests happening. That's not a reality. I'm sorry. Like burning a few like AI cars. Are we being honest here? Throwing rocks at a police car? That's not violence. It just isn't. When we're seeing hundreds and hundreds of people be rounded up by the police and arrested for peaceful protest, we're seeing maybe thousands of people be rounded up and kidnapped by the modern day Gestapo. That is violence. When we're seeing them shoot at head level with less than lethal rounds that can kill, that can maim, and have maimed in the last couple weeks. It's absurd. I can speak from personal experience as media. I've been in media sections at some of these protests and situations. And the media has been mercilessly attacked by the police, by Border Patrol, by ICE. We've been shot at without regard. So clearly what we're facing here is not a equal exchange of violence or power here. That's not happening. Another tactic that has been on display is one that I kind of want to delve a little bit more into in terms of the efficacy of it, what I think should kind of be the model, especially in regards to ICE and federal authorities coming into communities, is the rapid response networks and community patrols. Now, one of the biggest sort of developments in the last 6 months or so was the development of the Community Self-Defense Coalition here in Southern California, which expanded out from LA to the Inland Empire and to San Diego. And, you know, organizations involved in that, such as Union del Barrio, Centro CSO, and a litany of others, plus union support. I mean, it's a coalition that I think has developed out of response to this fascist assault in the last 6 months and has produced the best results in terms of defense for the community. One of the things that they developed was a 24/7 hotline number, right? So at any point in the day, somebody in LA, a county with millions of people, can call or text this number, and they have a dedicated team to respond to that. There's also the Know Your Rights training that developed in the last 6 months. That did not start, you know, what was it, June 6th or 7th was that Friday when this kind of all increased dramatically. But even long before that, for months and months and months, the coalition was dedicated to training not just workers, but, you know, teachers, going into the schools, the teachers' unions, making sure that they're aware of their rights when it comes to ICE raids or attempted ICE raids on campuses. Small businesses, I know for communists that might be very, very alarming, but a lot of small business owners here in LA are also immigrant connected or migrant connected. It's a reality here. You might even get business owners that are undocumented technically in LA. Like, that's how it just is. So there has been this concerted effort when there are small businesses in, you know, densely populated Latino areas, Chicano areas, to basically do that community outreach. There's been what's called barrio walks, where different organizations go out in their communities and do that outreach. Go, you know, knocking on door to door, business to business, community space to community space, to spread Know Your Rights information. That was months and months and months of work, and developing that coalition, developing that work. And then we also have the community patrols, right? So every day, almost constantly, if not constantly 24/7, there are community patrols now in LA looking out for ICE. Or obviously connected with the hotline, if we get a call about ICE, you know, in X, Y, and Z location, there is a patrol that is sent out to verify, to educate, and to bring awareness to the community if there is ICE presence there. Just to, again, educate the community to be aware, so that we can, you know, in a sense, defend each other. You know, if people need to go inside, that's how they know. If people need to go hide somewhere, that's how they know. You know, it's this level of community-wide, county-wide communication that is now constant. where you have this mass coalition of 80 plus organizations working around the clock on this, and they're in the community developing these connective tissues so that there's this web of ears and eyes to be on the lookout for ICE, to be on the lookout for Border Patrol, for FBI, HSI, Homeland Security. Like, all of the agencies we can think of are here. ATF, like Marshals, like every agency is here trying to terrorize our communities. And that has been one of the best defenses. That's been the best defense line we have as a community, has been these rapid response networks and community patrols, right? People struggle over in San Fernando Valley has their own. Churla has their own rapid response network as well. But the coalition is really the only one doing the community patrols. So I really want to highlight that. If you are in the LA area, if you are in an organization in the LA area and you're not getting involved in the coalition, you're doing something wrong. If you're in other areas of this country and you're wondering, what do we do right now? Build a community self-defense coalition right now. Develop the materials that you need, and obviously most of it's online, for Know Your Rights education, community patrols education, how to spot ICE and Border Patrol vehicles, and start training these organizations in coalition together and start going out in the community. You have to develop that network of people in these neighborhoods, because obviously, hundreds of organizers working together is amazing. I mean, for anyone that is in organizing knows, getting 300 to 500 organizers from 80 different organizations together in a room is very, very difficult. And to do that and to get work done is incredible. And you can do a lot with that, so much with that. But then you still need to go out in the community. Like, that is a huge point to it. The Community Self-Defense Coalition is, obviously it's built on the backs of hundreds of organizers and very key organizations, but it's also built on the backs of having those connections to the community. That's how it works. And then obviously we've seen as well, and this has been the part that and just for the record, I really recommend checking out Ron Gochez's statement from Union del Barrio in response to Josh Hawley's letter from the U.S. Senate threatening one of the key organizations here, basically. I really recommend checking out that statement from Union del Barrio. I think it's one of the better statements you can read right now on what is happening here. Highly, highly recommend it. I quote it heavily in my article, and hopefully it gets published soon, but you can still go read it on the website. Go do it. It's worth it. We've also seen community defense escalate to like spontaneous clashes with the police. And this is, I'll be honest here, I get more in depth in the article just because of the nature of it. I might not go as in depth on YouTube and Twitch. Apologies. You might have to wait for the article for as in depth of an analysis on that one. But I want to really stress how spontaneous it's been. For example, the Paramount raid at Home Depot that Saturday that first weekend, right, when it really got crazy. That wasn't something that was organized by the coalition. That wasn't something that was like an organized insurrectionary activity. That was purely spontaneous from the community around that Home Depot that knew the workers there specifically by name that were arrested by ICE and Border Patrol. So when I got there and I saw waves of people trying to get closer to that police line, that ICE line, it wasn't organized. It was spontaneous. It was people in the community trying to get to their loved ones, crying that their family and friends were kidnapped and they didn't know what was going to happen to them and they were worried. And we saw barricades get set up. We saw that also in downtown LA. spontaneously after a mass peaceful demonstration was attacked by the police, and the crowd reacted defensively to set up barricades to protect themselves from incoming munitions. These type of clashes, or Compton's another example, right? Compton was the same day as Paramount. These type of clashes with ICE has been spontaneous action. There has not been organizing to do that. That's been the community, the neighbors, the friends and family being so enraged at their loved ones being kidnapped that they're doing everything they can to keep them there. And by extension, that's why we've seen, and it's kind of dropped off a little bit, I think, due to the amount of state repression we've seen, but we saw for a long period of time a concerted effort from the community to try to get to the federal detention center and try to protest around it, try to, in a sense, lock it down. Because that's what happens when there's a mass protest outside that gate or outside that garage that, if you've seen the videos, of like National Guard and Marines stationed in front of with police, with like army vehicles, and then it looks like they go into a garage. That's the federal detention center. That's where everyone that's been picked up and arrested by ICE is held at, and then hopefully for the fascists, transported afterwards. But the community, once they protest outside that, it makes that entire detention center go in lockdown. So in a sense, people cannot get deported. So that's why we saw a spontaneous concerted effort from the community to, in a sense, block that federal detention center. And that led to multiple clashes, multiple acts of violence by the police, by the National Guard, by the Marines. All of these agencies have been shooting at protesters. I want to make that perfectly clear. I feel like some people don't understand that it's all of them. I think some people think that like ICE is going into these raids, LAPD is not working with them. That's what Mayor Karen Bass says. The National Guard is just on federal property. They're not shooting at any of these protesters at all. All of that's pretty much false. Every single part of it. There's been cases of National Guard going away from federal property to assist in ICE raids. There's been everyday cases of LAPD and Sheriff's Department and other local police departments like Long Beach, Pasadena, San Fernando Valley. Like there's other police departments in the county, all helping ICE and Border Patrol. There's been documented proof now that they've been sharing information and resources, which is something that the Sanctuary City Ordinance that was pushed by organizations like Churla and other mass orgs was supposed to do, was supposed to protect the community from, was that sharing of resources between the LAPD and ICE. And they're doing that. They're sharing license plate numbers. They're obviously on the street together. They've shared sort of battle lines and tactics together. They've deployed together. They've shot at protesters together. We're seeing mass collaboration from every aspect of the state for these fascist kidnappings and, in a sense, military occupation of the city, because that's what it has become. Now, on the question of is it armed struggle, I think I will not go into too much depth on it. I will say you should probably read my article that will come out hopefully very, very soon about this. And if it doesn't get picked up by Peace, Land, and Bread, I'll publish it on my Substack probably in the next couple days, because I get angsty. Like I gotta publish stuff. I want to just say this in terms of like a last bit of advice in this question. I'll quote the great Gerald Horne, because he advised organizers that either were contemplating a armed struggle or were maybe forced into these situations. He said that they, quote, should have an analysis on the correlation of forces domestically, who will be our allies, who will be our antagonists, above all, an international analysis. I hope they have been in touch with our comrades in Cuba, and he mentions other places, that they try to rally international support, That would be my only cautionary note with regard to a replay of the 1960s and 70s. Now, we're in this period of, again, what seems like uprisings, mass resistance, similar to 2020, Occupy. Those are the things in living memory for me. The 60s and 70s were not in living memory for me, unfortunately, or fortunately. But we're in this period of uprising. Get organized. Develop some basic lines of defense for your community, because that's what we kind of need right now. I think a lot of communists online get ahead of themselves in terms of rhetoric and, what's going to happen here. Because what's going to happen here if we don't develop organization is just violence on our communities. If you don't have lines of defense that are very basic and, again, diverse to some degree, it's going to be a struggle and not a fun one. And it's not a fun one now, but at least we have these lines of defense to shield us from this threat, Like the National Lawyers Guild is in the coalition. Like that's a line of defense to have, legal defense, right? It's important to build that infrastructure, to find organizations that either are developing them and work in tandem, or if there is no infrastructure, get other organizations together and start building it rapidly. We are behind the clock here, unfortunately, and all hands are on deck. Moving on from LA, and again, hopefully you all go check out my article when it's published very, very soon. But we have, in the last, 2 weeks or so, right? We've went from Israel bombing Iran significantly, and Iran retaliating in kind, to now the U.S. bombing Iran officially, allegedly bombing their nuclear sites, and again, allegedly from Iran, those nuclear materials or whatever, I'm not a nuclear scientist, that they basically offloaded all of those materials from those sites already ahead of time. I believe I saw a reporter say that he had a source say that Trump alerted Iran of these oncoming attacks. So I'll be a little bit honest here. I do wonder where this goes. I think, not to be like the person that says like, oh, nothing ever happens, but I could see this just kind of replicating the Soleimani assassination, where we get like some retaliatory, missiles launched. There are the low-end missiles from Iran to U.S. military bases that aren't really that occupied anymore, in Iraq and Israel again. And that be something that just happens, and in 2 years' time we get another iteration of this. Or we get a situation where the U.S. keeps ramping up bombing campaigns and tries to do to Iran what they did to Libya, right? Like that's the other scenario that could play out here. I want to read some statements from different parties in the region. This was before the U.S. bombing. The Palestinian Communist Party made a statement saying they condemn, in the strongest terms, the brutal Zionist aggression against the Islamic Republic of Iran, which constitutes a flagrant violation of international law and a clear threat to regional and international peace and security. This aggression comes within the context of the expansionist and aggressive policies pursued by the Zionist entity, which are not limited to the occupied Palestinian territories, but expand to include all those who support the cause of national liberation and stand in the face of imperialist and Zionist arrogance. The party asserts that this systematic targeting of Iran is part of Zionist American project seeking to impose hegemony over the peoples of the region, sow chaos and destruction in service of the interest of the global capital, and strike at any axis of resistance that opposes these aggressive policies. we, the Palestinian Communist Party, declare our full solidarity with the Iranian people and their progressive and nationalist forces. We affirm their right to defend their country's sovereignty and territorial integrity, and we call on revolutionary and progressive forces and the free people of the world to stand united in confronting this dangerous escalation, which could drag the region to further war and destruction. We also hold the international community, especially the United Nations, responsible for taking urgent action to put an end to this Zionist arrogance and halt the series of aggression that has targeted numerous peoples and homelands in our region. Glory to the resistance and victory to our peoples in their struggle against imperialism and Zionism. Long live the international struggle against colonialism and wars. Again, the Palestinian Communist Party, and that was June 13th is when they signed it. It was published then on SolidNet on the 16th. And then at the same time, the Tudeh Party of Iran and the Communist Party of Israel also put out statements at basically the same time. Recommend checking out even the CPUSA International Department, which put out a statement in conjunction as well with those two parties. Jewish Force for Peace also put out a statement. And this is after, again, now the Trump bombing of Iran. And then the Palestinian People's Party today released a statement saying the Palestinian People's Party expressed its strong condemnation of the military aggression launched by U.S. forces against the Islamic Republic of Iran under orders from its president and in coordination and conjunction with the ongoing Israeli aggression. The party emphasized that this usurping aggression by the leader of imperialism and organized international terrorism is part of the United States' ongoing efforts to consolidate and strengthen its hegemony over the region. In its statement issued on Sunday, the party affirmed that the actions of the United States and before it, the Israeli occupation not only constitute a new violation of all international laws and convention, but also a direct threat to security and peace throughout the region and the world. The People's Party said that while expressing its solidarity with the Islamic Republic of Iran and affirming its right, as well as the right of all peoples of the region to defend themselves, their national interests, and the sovereignty of their countries, it calls on all Arab peoples, countries, political and societal forces to strengthen their unity and activate all their energies to confront the American-Israeli bullying and arrogance and their allies, and to thwart plans to violate the sovereignty of their countries, plunder their wealth, and impose their hegemony over them, as well as to work to exert all possible pressure to immediately stop the genocide to which our people are being subjected and to support their national rights. And again, that's from the Palestinian People's Party. And just to remind folks, this was put out by Copink yesterday. So it's 48 hours from yesterday. Israel killed 218 Palestinians and injured over 1,000 in Gaza. That's just in the last few days. So just want to put it in sort of perspective here, what we're seeing. We're seeing Israel continue and expand its genocide in proportions that are becoming so dire that I don't really know what to do and like how to address it, right? We're seeing like thousands of Palestinians flock to these aid centers and just be shot, be bombed by Israel, by mercenaries. It's utterly horrific. There's as a communist, we always want to believe in like the goodness of humanity, and it's really hard during these times. Not to be nihilistic, but just being honest here. It's been 2 years of watching videos every day of children being killed, and mutilated. I don't have the stomach really to see that anymore. And I feel like how have we collectively as a species not collectively been so disgusted to do something about it? Why is it only Yemen and Iran? It's disappointing, to say the least. No shame or no shot at Hezbollah. I'm sorry, Hezbollah. You've done some work too. We've had 3 actors in the entire region do something. In the world, not just the world, right? Like China could do a lot more. Like the reality is, like, China could put on economic pressure on Israel, and it doesn't. And it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. The reality is, I don't think China needs Israel's economic trade at all. And in the era that we're in now, where U.S. and Chinese trade is declining, or not declining, but the threat of it being just stopped, if I'm China, like, that's a way bigger concern than Israel, right? Like, the U.S. is a far bigger market for Chinese companies, I would presume, than Israel. So why worry about this? It's just so odd to me to kind of both sides a genocide. And all solidarity with China, I get their policy, but I don't get it, really, if that makes sense. There's been elements of the UN that's attempted to do stuff, but they're, I guess, very limited because of how the Security Council is set up with the veto power that the U.S. holds. The International Criminal Court is rather toothless when it's not the U.S. utilizing it for its nefarious imperialist purposes. Like, let's just be honest about it, right? The International Criminal Court only does a good job when it's persecuting, like, African leaders. Like, honestly. They're not doing their job here, or at least they can't enforce their job. How's it when Netanyahu's in Greece, he's not picked up by Interpol? Like, I don't understand how these things don't work, other than, like, just it's capitalism and imperialism, right? Like, it's one big club, and, like, we're not in it, right? But, like, I think, like, that's just the reality, I guess. But like I said at the top, I don't really know where this is going to go. I mean, the calls or concerns about this being World War III or the start of it, I don't think are out of the question. I don't see Iran, like, pulling the trigger to that regard. I just don't see it. They haven't moved that way in large part, especially when it comes to Israel. They've acted very tit for tat on some of these issues. I'll be honest, I just don't know where this goes. It could go many ways. All of them are kind of bad for their own reason, right? Like, if we get World War III, like, that sucks for obvious reasons. And if we get nothing happening, then what does that mean? It means the U.S. can still go and bomb other countries with total impunity, without any concern for retaliation, without any concern for the international rule of law as it claims to exist. So, none of the past this goes leads to anything truly productive here. Like, that's the reality. Unless other, like, big players get involved, like a China, and shifts this balance of forces dramatically, like, it's going to equal a stalemate. Like, the U.S. cannot go boots to the ground, invade Iran, and win a ground war. Cannot do that. It just can't. We could maybe bomb Iran for the next 20 years and hope that becomes a failed state. That could happen, a la Libya, right? Just erode the public respect and sort of favorability for the leadership there, right? You go and fund some dissidents and rebels, and you go bomb major cities. So you make the populace just unhappy and wanting change, and that's how you get regime change, right? Like, but that's a long game in my mind. Like, I don't think we get that happening the next year. Like, look how long it took Syria to unravel and become a failed state a la Libya. It took, 10, 15, 20 years. Like, it took a long time. So I don't, like, nothing happens in the immediacy here, except for just maybe more death and destruction without any intended goal. Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons. You know how we know this? Because the U.S. would not have bombed Iran if it had nuclear weapons. That's the reality. That's the reality. The U.S. didn't bomb Libya until they gave up its nuclear weapons. The U.S. is not going to really bomb the state of Pakistan. It might bomb terrorists in Pakistan, but it's not going to bomb the state of Pakistan. Why? Because it has nukes. It's not going to bomb China because it has nukes. It's not going to bomb India because India has nukes. It's not going to bomb France because France has nukes. Like, this is just the reality. So, I think if you wanted to shift this paradigm, you would need another player, unfortunately, with nuclear armaments to come on the side, overtly on Iran's side, to just stop the U.S. hegemonic takeover of West Asia, right? Like, that would be the best outcome that we have. But I just don't know. I don't know. Anyways, I think that's going to be it for today's show. I really, really appreciate everyone for tuning in. Hit the like button, share the show, all that fun stuff. You guys know what to do. As I've said on previous shows, I'm working on the next documentary for the channel. It's on Karl Marx. It's taking longer than I expected because, we had a giant uprising in LA. Our apologies. We'll get it out to you guys as soon as possible. But research phase is still in the process, so that means pre-production is still in the process. Script is not made. I will definitely alert everyone when the script is done, or at least it's getting started. It's not. I'm still researching, still crafting an outline and everything. But that should be out this year. If I had to guess, sometime this year, definitely this year. If there's one thing to take away from today's show, go and start your community self-defense coalition. I would probably presume that most people that watch this show aren't in LA. They're in other parts of the country, like New York. That's just what the data shows. Chicago, San Francisco. Look to that model. If you have questions, if you're an organizer, reach out to me. That's my social media handle right there. Twitter, Instagram. Reach out to me if you have any questions about how to get one started. The struggle is here. The struggle against fascism, imperialism, capitalism, we cannot avoid it. We have to get organized, get prepared, all that fun stuff. Be safe out there. Check out the Substack this week because that article is probably going to get put out this week for more in-depth analysis on the diversity of tactics in LA, what it means, are we in a period of armed struggle, all those fun, pertinent questions right now. No war with Iran. I feel like that should be obvious. Free Palestine. And fuck the police. Always fuck the police. Let's never forget that. And peace.
It's too much money here. I mean, nobody should be hitting lotto for 36 million and we got people starving in the streets. That is not idealistic. That's just real. That is just stupid.
You feel, however, that we're making progress in this country and worldwide?
No. I will never say that progress is being made. If you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, there's no progress. You pull it all the way out, that's not progress. The progress is healing the wound that the blow made. They won't even admit the knife is there.
Socialism is an integral part of building social justice on this planet.
We said that we'll work with anybody, form coalition with anybody that has revolution on their mind.
Because of the way this society is organized, because of the violence that exists on the surface everywhere, you have to expect that there are going to be such explosions. You have to expect things like that.